Alviro Peterson returned to Cardiff to punish the side he captained last season, scoring a big 100 on the opening day of the LV County Championship match between Glamorgan and Essex. Mark Wallace won the toss and had a bowl on a ground where runs have been almost impossible to come by this year, but Essex did have Alistair Cook back in their ranks, which would have helped them no end. Such difficulties with the willow were emphasised early on. Billy Godleman had some difficulty in avoiding a bouncer from Graham Wagg, while in the same over, Cook was happy to avoid getting out to a grubber from the same bowler on this dampish wicket. Cork, in his first county game of the season, survived for nearly an hour, but he then nicked Hugh Waters behind to depart for 9. Peterson, the South African opener, scored 100 for Glamorgan against Essex last year when he captained the Welshman for one summer. For some, he was a somewhat controversial signing for Essex for the first 2 months of the season, as he readies himself for the forthcoming Test series with England, but few in Essex would have minded that, as he soon adapted to the tough conditions really well. He lost Godleman at the other end 20 minutes before lunch, the opener edging Dean Kosker to Stuart Walters on 21. It was Kosker's 500th first-class wicket. And Glamorgan's lunch would have tasted that much better when they also dismissed Ravi Vipara, who'd failed to get off the mark when he was legged before to leave his side on 60 for 3. And worse was to follow for Essex straight after the break, as Tom Wesley was well held at short leg by Gareth Rees off the bowling of Wagg. Wesley had gone for 3 to leave Essex in some trouble on 65 for 4. In their last game, Essex had slipped to 25 for 5 against a Jack Brooks-inspired Northamptonshire, but this time they recovered magnificently, led of course by who else but Peterson. Last year he made a real name for himself in Wales, scoring in excess of 2,000 runs in all competitions, becoming only the 6th Glamorgan player to achieve that. He'd made a 50 here from 73 balls and looked in no mood to stop there against his former charges. He struck many glorious shots, this being the most expansive. It went all the way for 6 over long on. Peterson has proved before in the county game that once he gets in, he is very difficult to dislodge. By his own admission, he learnt a lot from skippering Glamorgan in British conditions a year ago, and his game has clearly come on since then, although he did upset Glamorgan by reneging on his agreement with the county to return to the international game. With Mark Pettini happy to block away at one end, Peterson was the only batsman to make his profession look a fairly simple one in Cardiff so far this season. Whatever the Glamorgan attack had learnt from bowling at Peterson in the nets last year, it didn't appear to be working for them now. Just before tea, and Peterson reached his excellent 100. Footballers these days often don't want to celebrate success against their former team. Peterson felt otherwise as he got to his ton off his 147th delivery. It really was a supreme effort from the South African, who dominated the scoring for the moment he came to the crease. Not every shot was right out of the meat of the bat, but most were. Pettini's role should not be underestimated as well. He hit only 1-4 in his 150-ball 50, but he twice pulled the ball over the ropes for maximums. His innings blended defence with attack perfectly. But the day really belonged to Peterson, who put on 181 with Pettini for the 5th wicket, the latter's contribution to that being 56. The second new ball then made a big difference as Glamorgan fought back at the end of the day. After batting for 3.5 hours in which 55 overs are used up, Pettini nicked Waters to Wagg at 246 for 5. 2 balls later, Peterson was also out for 145, leg before to Wagg to end his near 5-hour knock. And suddenly we had a collapse on. In the same Wagg over, James Foster was bowled for a duck, and in Wagg's next over, he also trapped Greg Smith in front with only a single to his name. Wagg was mightily close to his 5th wicket. Tymel Mills flicked a shot which smacked into Rees at short leg, Wallace unable to make the most of the rebound. Instead, it was left to Waters to claim his 3rd wicket to bring about a declaration, David Masters chipping the bowler to Will Owen. Essex had lost 5 wickets for the addition of only 13 runs, and Foster then decided to have a go with the ball. Neither Masters or new recruit Charles Willoughby could do any damage, however, and Glamorgan ended the day on 1 without loss from 3 overs in reply to Essex's 259 for 9, a total in which only 3 batsmen made double figures. There may be some testing times for the Glamorgan batsmen ahead.